Our next speaker is Bill Drummy.
Hi, I'm Bill Drummy, CEO of Heartbeat Digital. I have to start off by just confessing this feels a little bit like speed dating to me. And that never worked out too well, but hopefully this will be better. So I wanted to talk a little bit, not so much about why I'm here or why the audience is here, but really why the FDA is here, which may seem a little odd to bring that up. But I was trying to kind of get at the purpose of this, really, what are we really trying to do? And I went looking for kind of your mission. And what I found on your website was a really clear statement, I think, probably could be called your mission. The FDA is responsible for advancing the public health by helping to speed the innovations that make medicines and foods more effective, safer, and more affordable, and helping the public get accurate, science-based information they need to use medicines and foods to improve their health. That's a great mission. The question really is, how close are we to that right now? Well, there are 50 million health terms searched a day in the U.S. 50 million. It's a mind-boggling figure. It's impossible to get your head around that. So I thought, let's just look at one search and one person searching. So this is our searcher, Susan Smith. She's a 55-year-old office manager with 3 children. And unfortunately, she's also been diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis. So what does Susan do? Well, this is one of those 50 million daily searches. She goes on Google. 70% of people are starting on a search engine, most of them starting at Google. She types in rheumatoid arthritis. And this is an example of a results page she might see. Okay, so Susan, let's see how she goes through this exploration. Well, one of the most prominent sites she comes up with is this site, Zimosine, the doctor's natural choice. It makes all sorts of claims of its efficacy. And you can tell, how is Susan going to know whether she should trust a site like this? Well, there is a doctor's picture on the site, and he's wearing a stethoscope. So perhaps that's a valid criterion. And there's if we actually had internet access here today, we could play the audio clip, and it actually has a woman talking about how wonderful this product is and how she swears by it. This site is not regulated by the FDA. Yet, how is Susan to know that? So Susan is persistent. She's an intelligent person. She's runs an office. She's raised a family. She knows how to do things. So let's go to a very reliable source. Let's look at WebMD. And this is a rewrite of an actual quote from a message group regarding a particular drug. We're going to make up a drug called Drug X. I would not take Drug X. It's possible you should look into some other holistic approaches. They work and may actually help stop the joint damage. Go on and on, this quote goes, to explain why this is a good choice. Now, in this particular posting, there is no way for Susan to know the validity of these claims. Nevertheless, Susan's not willing to take the posting of a stranger as advice, and she keeps looking. So she comes onto another very respected site. This is the Mayo Clinic website, and on that site she sees an ad from a pharma company, which is, in fact, for a FDA-regulated and approved product for the treatment of rheumatoid arthritis. And what she sees here is a very minimal amount of information, a clear message, not a very fancy message, but a clear message, and then a box below that. And in that box, in mouse type, there is important safety information. Now, I don't understand why this exists. I don't understand how this fulfills your mission as an agency. It doesn't. People don't read it. It does not improve the public safety. So we cannot keep doing it this way. And I applaud you for having these hearings for us to discuss how we should do it. But I hope that we are not kind of get into a legalistic mind space where we are talking about having every specific word down correctly, even though we know that none of the words are being read from lots of data. Another example, if you went to Twitter, again, you would not know if this is a real valid person or not and what their opinion was valid. If you went to the actual website of Drug X and you saw SideWiki and you saw comments from people like Clint Black about my RA and don't use this drug but use something else. He's giving medical advice. How am I to know the value of that? There's no way of me knowing that. This is not making anyone safer. So this is the situation Susan finds herself in. She's basically looked at a lot of different information, and she doesn't know what to trust. She doesn't know where to turn. She doesn't know how to make a decision. The information she's found is accurate, but could be confusing and overwhelming in some cases, or it's completely inaccurate, or it's incomplete or unclear. It's not a good situation. It's not fulfilling the FDA's mission. So what if we could, how could we make things better? Let's talk about something practical here. So let's try the same search again with searching on rheumatoid arthritis. In this case, we have a different ad, and this ad is for drug X, but in this case, we have this radical simplification that I talked about earlier, where what you see is, in very clear language, common side effects are nausea and dizziness, and you can get complete safety information here. Now, that's very few words, and you could argue, well, that's not enough. I would argue that that is way more helpful to Susan than having mouse type that she's never going to read. The radical simplification of the information is actually a way of improving the communication. Lots of data is necessarily better data. So let's look at another example here. Here's a message board where they're talking about drug X, and in this, the lower posting there, I've had great experience using drug X. It's been a miracle drug for me, and I haven't had any RA symptoms since taking it. I recommend doubling the dosage. You will get results quicker. Now, right now, there is no requirement for the manufacturer of drug X to do anything about that, to be aware of it, to intercede in the conversation. By the way, I really take issue with the whole notion that we can't possibly police everything being said about drug X. Yes, we can. Software actually makes it very doable to do it, and I would think if I'm manufacturing drug X, I want to know what people are saying, and you can know. The idea that it's only on certain sites that you can look is really an old world idea that really has to change here. So in this other model that I'm talking about, here's an example of a made-up person. We're making up somebody from Pfizer. And this person says, Good Samaritan, my name is Andrew, and I actually work for Pfizer. So she's making it transparent. We're committed to making sure people have the safest, most reliable information about our products. You should never alter the recommended dosing for the product. Instead, you should consult your physician regarding the appropriate use of the medication. If you want more information, you can go here to find it. Now, is that not making people safer? I ask you. Is that not more in keeping with your mission than what we have right now? So basically, it comes down to greater transparency of relevant scientific information. Words from your mission statement will improve public health and help to fulfill the mission of the FDA.
Thank you, Mr. Drummy, for your presentation. I have a question. Your example about the side effect presentation, it was for common side effects of nausea and dizziness.
Right.
How would you suggest companies or FDA requirement for drugs that have warnings, important warnings, sometimes potentially fatal warnings? Obviously, you need more explanation so consumers can understand it in layman terms. What would you suggest?
I would say that you have to be very, very clear about that. And again, the idea of less information in this case is more, because we're dealing with the problem of data smog. Less is more. If you said, for example, there have been suicidal reports, in clear language, right in that few words that you choose, you would actually be much more protective of the public's health than the way we have it now. Doesn't that make sense to you?
It's a good comment. We're here to listen.
All right. Well, that's just a rhetorical question then.
It's food for thought. Any other questions by the panel? Dr. Perriman.
And in terms of companies surveying, that's probably not the word, the web for material monitoring, and then you would recommend that they would then take action, try to remove it, try to correct it?
Okay, so we recommend something very specific, and that would be they have an obligation to know what's being said about their products with a certain amount of due diligence. You can never ensure 100%, and you have to have reasonable time frames and all that. But when you find things, okay, let's say that adverse event I showed earlier was an actual possible adverse event. What we're suggesting is that the person from Pfizer or wherever would go in and say, we see that you've actually said something, it concerns us, we'd like to take that conversation into a private place where we can find out more. And then there could be proper, like, please, this is the way we would want you need to report that. If it's really serious, give us this information. It goes to MedWatch or some other site like that where things can be recorded. So there's a way of that person intervening and actually making it possible for us to find out if that is a serious adverse event and really improving public health that way.
Do you see the responsibility for looking for adverse event information different than the example you showed there, which was a treatment recommendation?
Well, I think they're both. I think once you start looking, period, you're responsible for both. And I think that certainly anything that's off-label, I think there's a responsibility of the company to say, please, if you see something that's off-label, you need to say, that is not approved. That's not an approved use for a drug. And that's a relatively simple thing to automate. So once a person does it, there could be keystrokes that basically give that message, and it's done. Certainly, adverse event is a higher bar because there's something serious happening. So we want to have a way for that information to get out there rapidly and appropriately right into the system right away. So I think it requires more effort if it's a possible adverse event.